There's a saying that people move to places due to the energy of the city. So there's some resonance behind it. Every city you go to, based on the collective consciousness of the people, there's a particular frequency, particular energy. And you feel that going into different places. And if you travel, have you felt that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I hate being in Toronto, but in the French part of Canada, Montreal is like a big city there, and you go there and the energy is just so much nicer. So I totally get what you mean.
Yeah. So I think for me, like Sydney is like New York. It's people are walking quickly. It's more of a hustle city. People are working. And so I think that was part of my um, unconscious desire to move to a city that had an energy of more action taking, an
Right.
energy of more, I would say, masculine energy. I would say New Zealanders are very passive, like sheep, um, and they don't like stand up for each other very much. And I think I would be more akin to Canada. Like in Canada, I'm
It,
guessing people are very passive, very nice, but they actually are just fake nice because of social conditioning. It's like they don't give a shit,
yes.
but they're like, "Ah, hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
And they're like, they're not going to be your friends. But I find here people are more like, "I'm going to be your friend," or "I'm going to like be very like not nice to you," or overtly you can just tell they're not interested, and you're just like, okay, they're not interested in
Yeah.
chatting. You got with a guy or girl, it's just like very more harsh reaction. So when I first arrived here, I was like, whoa, people are like really aggressive. Like I was like, the guys here are so aggressive because I was like looking at their eyes and they're like really intense and they're like strutting about. I'm like, wow, so intense. I was come from a place where everyone's like sheep and everyone's like very passive and kind
Yeah.
of dulled out. So it's like different energy. But I think like I've picked up, you pick up the good aspects that you want from different cities. For now, it's still in resonance. There might be a time when my growth has completed here and I may move on to a new city. But Sydney's not bad. Sydney's not bad.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And as you're explaining that to me, it sounds very much like the comparison between Canada and the United States. Like Canada, it sounds very much like New Zealand, and I've heard a lot of people say who've traveled to both that like cultures are quite similar. But the United States is a lot more hustle bustle, like we're getting shit done. I'm gonna tell you what I think. Whereas Canada, like as you said, it's almost like a fake niceness. Like Canada has this like local reputation, as far as I've been told, of being really nice. And like, yeah, there's a lot of nice people, but also like you go to any metropolis and it's not that way. It's just you're not gonna get stabbed in the middle of the street, but also like
Mm,
it's not like people are actually that kind. I don't think,
right.
except for
Definitely.
the east coast of Canada. The East Coasters, um, people from Newfoundland. I don't know how familiar you are with Canadian
Not at all.
geography,
But I
but
have a friend from
um,
um what's it, Calgary. That's the only city I know.
Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, um, yeah. I imagine with every country, especially when it's like big, like Canada is, there's so many different cultures, like pockets of culture that exist, right? Um, anyhow, I digress. So you are working online with that same job now in Sydney, or you're doing
I
something
moved
different now?
jobs. I moved jobs to another job. Yeah. So got more pay, working for an Australian company. Ironically, still working basically remotely because all my coworkers are in Melbourne. So even though I have an office here, all my coworkers in my team are in Melbourne. So doesn't really
Right.
change much. I'm still in my room, but it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where where in Australia are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, Sydney, Redfern. It's like two suburbs away from the city, so it's pretty close.
Okay.
It used to be a really sketchy area. I can tell you about it actually. So it used to be
I
where
would love to learn about it.
all the gangs were. And I was saying to my Uber driver when he was taking me to the airport, and he was like, I was like, oh, so what was Redfern like? Was he had grown up in Redfern back in the day? And he was like, oh, I was like, it
Right.
was like Compton. There were like shootings, there were like
Damn.
stabbings. all this shit. He was telling me all this crazy shit. And what happened is the Sydney Olympics came up in like 2000 or 1999. And so the police were like, somebody from high up was like, well, we can't have stabbings and shootings and gang violence in Sydney, right?
Yeah.
You guys have to do something about it. And so the police finally did something, and they spent 3 months. They went door to door. They cleaned out the whole place, and
Mm.
yeah, all the gangs just dispersed everywhere else, and wasn't an issue anymore. But kind of shows you can solve those criminal issues as police if you do try. But I guess most don't try.
Yeah. As it goes.
Yeah.
As it goes. And then you're also running a YouTube channel. And that's how you connected with Joe and then ended up in Impact U. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. So I used to make podcasts. Now I don't really make many podcasts. I'm more into my own kind of content. Um, yeah, nothing
Right.
crazy. But I yesterday I was shocked because I posted a video on Friday. It was just like a quick 4 minute video, right? And I got like
Mm-hmm.
70 views, 7 likes, 3, 4 new subs. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because before that, like I'm at only 100 subs, and then I went to like 106 in the last few days.
Yeah.
But before that, it was like 1 sub like every, I don't know, month or something. I just didn't expect it. But got like quite a
Yeah.
few from one video. I'm like, oh, okay, I should keep making this. Like I have potential here, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've made like
That's
100.
awesome, man.
What about you, man? Do you make videos?
Um, I made Instagram videos a while back. I was making a video a day for, I want to say it was like over 6 months.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool, but it takes a lot of effort. Like, because you can just record and then throw it up without editing, but I
Yeah.
find even basic editing takes a fair bit of time. And
Yes.
so I much prefer now just making written content,
Yeah.
as I think it's easier to just throw stuff out, to test it, to iterate, to batch produce. And yeah, Joe and I have been working on systems for that, because I do think that content and content creation is going to be the way of the future. And I think that the most valuable content is going to be the content that survives. And then obviously the people who make the most valuable content will be the ones who get the biggest followings. But I think we're really just the landscape of global economy seems to be changing to more of a decentralized, like, solopreneurship, if you will. So I think finding good systems for content creation in a thing that we are passionate about, and then just share that knowledge with other people, um, is a hypothesis that we are currently testing.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. I totally agree. Like after AI really comes in and bulldozes a few jobs in a few years, um, it's gonna be a bigger and bigger industry. And it's an accessible industry that anybody can get into. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm really interested to see what will happen.
absolutely. Have you played with AI much? Like, do you use it? Have you used it in content creation, or what's your relationship to it? I
Yeah.
suppose.
So for work, yes. For writing, no. Um, I think I just prefer my own. And I had a conversation with um a friend on this, and he said when writing books, never use AI, because if you're publishing on Amazon bookstore, you have to disclose if you use AI, even if you use a little bit. So even if you put your text in a little bit, then you have to disclose legally. I mean, technically you could not, but you have to disclose you've used AI. But what's the issue here? The issue is you're going to get bundled up with like all the books that are also tagged as being written by an AI, whether you've done one
Right.
sentence or the whole book. It doesn't really make a difference as
Right.
far as you having to declare that. And so I don't think the benefits of AI really give you enough reason to do that. And the second reason is because you are putting your ideas into the AI, and so it's going to be saved and stored and potentially used for something else. So it's if it's a new or fresh idea, it can be better to, and you want to make it a book, then yeah, probably best you don't use AI. That's what I think right now. Plus, it means you have to write in a different style that's different from AI. AI's currently writing in kind of like a particular style, and I think people are starting to tell. And I think even
Yeah.
if I think it's something about authenticity where you have mistakes in your writing, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy handwrote it. And it's like it's kind of nice. It's like artesian writing. Like, oh, he made a mistake. It's like it's a
Yeah.
good thing now. It's not a bad thing. It's like it's the opposite. So I would say you don't even want to be too perfectionistic in your writing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are very interesting points. I didn't know that about writing books on Amazon, and I have to do well. I just do a lot of writing in general, and I find what was it called? I have found a lot of benefit in using AI, but I think it has to be done in a particular collaborative manner rather than like an offloading responsibility onto it. So, for example, I think it's really helpful if I write out my own ideas of like effectively what I want and then ask it to critique what I've written to
Mm,
strengthen my arguments and say, what didn't make sense here? Where could I give an example or how could I improve this? And then it says, here's what you could do to make it better. And oftentimes I find that that's like a really effective means of, uh, yeah, just improving my writing because
mm.
I think we often can't see our own blind spots, right? Like I might make an instructional. I'm like, this makes perfect sense, and then someone reads it, and then like step one didn't make any sense to them. But like we can't see that when we are the authors, and so I've been finding that general use case pretty helpful. But when we're on LinkedIn, for example, because we started just the other day, we decided, you know what, let's commit to LinkedIn for 100 days, and it's amazing. You go in the comments, and they're either bots or just like a lot of very low effort or cookie cutter responses. And so it's interesting to see it start to seep into all of the ways. And one of the things that I think to what you had said earlier, um, authenticity, human authenticity is becoming more valuable as a result of this.
Mm.
And I think that that's one of the things that I hypothesize will stand out the most is like
Yeah.
who are the people that can really show up authentic online?
Yeah. And that leads into the spiritual path in a sense too, because to be authentic means to let go of that ego that needs to put up a pretense to people. And so if you can make a really raw
Yes.
video, and you can start to see that now where people make videos of like I'm 30 and I have no friends. You might have seen titles like that. Or like I'm
Yeah.
depressed and so and so. And you have like some of these videos go really viral and have like millions of views, right? But imagine posting something really shameful or embarrassing, and everyone can see it. You know, your workmates could see it if they looked at your channel, especially if it goes viral. Your parents can see it, and maybe you don't want to disclose it to your parents or family. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, but those videos can do well, because of that authentic aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And on the note of spirituality, obviously that's a big theme at Impact You and what all the conversations are about and Joe's channel. And I'd love to hear how did you get into spirituality or what does that mean to you? Like what is your relationship with it? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. So I suppose I started off in self improvement. Like I used to follow self improvement YouTube channels, all of those things, and eventually you learn like, okay, meditation is a good tool. So then you just start to see meditation as like, oh, I'll do it for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. Then I got into Sam Harris's content. So Sam Harris is probably one of the first people. I just don't follow him at all anymore. But I remember he had an app called Waking Up, which was actually really good. Have you used it before? It's
I've
a
not, but
great app.
Joe's mentioned it, and I've only heard good things about it.
Yeah, there's like a part. He's introduced different a lot of content on it, including not only meditations and your daily meditations to keep you on track, but podcasts of lots of different Dharma teachers. So it's like a good secular way to get into Buddhism, and it's very you can tell it's focused on like working professional type vibe. It's focused on uh, a secular, a logical person, a person that needs reasoning and things like that. Um, which is fine. But as I've gotten more into Buddhism, I've gotten away from that and more into was I've started to see that logic, rationalism, these are all belief systems as well. These are all like paradigms that we are following and operating in, but there's no actual truth in them. There's like there's relative truth, but there's no ultimate truth in it. And so as time's gone on, I've moved into um, following other teachers and watching YouTube channels and doing like qigong practices, zhang zhong, like standing like a tree posture. I did that for some time. I did Joe Dispenza stuff for some time. Um, I've done some, Vipassana, chakra work, um, all sorts of different stuff, really. Mirror exercise, that's a fun one. You can look at yourself in a mirror and you can connect yourself. I can talk about that later. So I've just done I've just tried everything. And my friends described me as an extremist. So our little friend group, we're all extremists in different things. One of them's an extremist in business. I'm extremist in trying things out. Like I just try out like everything. So yeah, that's my story. I just do
That's
whatever
awesome, man.
works. Whatever works, is fine. I'm not like focus on any one thing. Yeah.
Which I think is, a huge part of spirituality, Buddhism, I suppose, in particular, is non-attachment. And so to be able to just say, "Oh, I'm just going to try this and see what happens," and really give it a solid try, I think
Mm.
is a wonderful embodiment of those principles. So that's excellent. And I think my path was quite similar. Like I used to be fairly atheist as a rebellion to dogmatic teachings in religion. I
Yeah.
just wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, don't just tell me that this book is true and therefore I should believe everything in it. Like that's bullshit. And so I yeah rebelled quite a lot against that. And then as I started getting more into wellness, so I did physical wellness, and I started realizing like a lot of the problems that people experience with physical wellness actually stem from their mind. And so I got into mental physical wellness, like the combination of the two. And then got introduced into the importance of spirit in mind, body, spirit. And I think that was like really my introduction into spirituality. And that was through yoga. And then from there, I started to dive more into Buddhism, and a lot of uh, yoga teachings that I learned were rooted in Hinduism as well. And then just kind of branching out from there and exploring different things similar to you. Like, I just want to see what's going on. What do people have to teach? Because there's so much to learn, and to think that I have this one thing, and that is the truth seems unlikely to me. Although generally speaking, Buddhism seems to do a pretty good job. But even within that, there's a bunch of different sects of Buddhism,
Yeah.
and like they all claim to them be the truth. And I think, yeah, looking at different perspectives and then finding the intersection of truth is probably the most beneficial way to actually go about finding truth.
Yeah. Something I thought about is this whole like idea of certainty, because I think a lot of teachers talk on concepts with certainty. Um, but as I've progressed and like I felt expanded space or like where am I, things like that, self inquiry, um, emptiness, and then a lot of these concepts that like they're trying to define, like attainment, they make it feels way harder to put any reference point on it, right? Like the whole point is you're dissolving your reference points. But then teachers are like creating maps to find reference points that can't be found, and it's just baffling to me. Um, like I get why they do it, but at the same time, I would struggle to put reference points on like my experience. Like I really would, but I don't know how other people can. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. It is really weird when you get into the world of non-duality, or even just like looking for universal truth. All of a sudden, like everything just gets turned upside down.
Mm,
Uh, Oftentimes, Joe and I will have a conversation, and we will talk about the same things, kind of like from from opposite perspectives, which is just really a curious experience because Joe really likes non-duality and really talks quite a lot from that perspective and conceptualizes from that perspective. Um, Whereas I resonate a lot more with duality and seeing that as one. I ultimately they exist only because of the other. And so if you have non-duality in its name, you have duality. They're just two sides of the coin. It's like which one are we choosing to operate from?
mm,
So I prefer like speaking from duality. He prefers speaking from non-duality. We talk about the same thing, understand the other person's point, even though like we're coming from the other. And it's just interesting to like
right.
transcend both and be understanding what the other person is talking about. But another example is like saying everything is emptiness, and then saying everything has form. Both, emptiness can only exist if there is form, and form can only exist if there is emptiness. And so I find that interesting to conceptualize. And I suppose I'm sharing simply for the sake of, I think that's interesting.
Mm.
Would love to hear any thoughts that you might have on that.
Speaking of the whole emptiness is formless emptiness kind of thing. So in Buddhism, I've noticed that there's a particular flavor of how people are currently teaching. It's teaching from an intellectual point of view. Like the teachers are all intellectuals, right? But in the world, we don't just have intellectuals. We have many different types of people. And if you read literature, there's all sorts of different types of books. But I think we have a very skewed view of how this path is being taught because it's been taught by intellectuals like Daniel Ingram, who are very
Right.
particular and certain things and flavorings and teachings. And so I feel like a lot of the like hardcore sayings and the way they talk about emptiness and things like that hasn't exactly been like I can really understand where they're coming from now, but it hasn't been my direct understanding or experience of it. Like I've experienced it as more of like a layman, like more of a simple person. Like I was reading The Heart of Meditation by the Dalai Lama the other day, and I just opened it up to a page, and it was crazy. It was the perfect page. I felt cool to go to that page, like intuition, and it was the perfect page that
Yeah.
related to what I was thinking about that day, which was like how everything just arises and passes away, and there's no connections. And it's our mind that makes these little connections, and it keeps us stuck in thought, and it keeps us stuck away from presence. And so if you can abide in the open awareness, you can abide in a state where connectionless state where the connections aren't even forming, the connections are disappearing. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that's fucking amazing. But then I thought, like, if I didn't understand this, like, if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't be able to understand it because of how it was written in like such a intellectual point of view. And it made me realize, like, all my subtle realizations have been through like a different flavoring because my personality is like explain things from first principles, explain things really simply, explain things kind of like you explain to more of a child. Um, Sometimes I over explain, it's the side effect. But I'm like, wow, okay, so there's a really skewed way that we're seeing it. And I think there's a massive opportunity to teach in a way that is different from the current paradigm. And that means letting go of the current way things are being taught. And you know who see is doing really well at this, believe it or
What's
not?
that?
The new age spiritual movement. Joe's
Yeah.
like, I can see him popping back and forth. So obviously, there's like a bunch of teachers. It's really decentralized, and there's no like point. But I do notice that there is a greater like um, authenticity as far as using like content or using stories um, to help become more awake. So you're becoming more awake indirectly, in a sense, through I don't know if you follow like Teal Swan or somebody like that. You know Teal Swan?
I've I do know Teal Swan.
Yeah.
I haven't watched too much of her stuff. Um, but the few things I have seen, I did generally enjoy. Are there any other new age people that you enjoy as well?
Um, yeah, I can send you a few later on. One lady
Yeah,
Gab,
that would be great.
she's got like 30K subs, and another one. So they talk about like energetic impacts of different things, like energetic impacts of um, artwork, energetic impacts of manifestations and things like that, which could be considered more woo woo.
Mhm.
But as I've looked into it, um, there's some truth to it. You know, there's a truth to it. But I think they're aiming for different things. Like in a sense, the New Age spiritual movement more pragmatic in the sense that it's more about like living a good life, and they don't have the goal of enlightenment. Whilst Buddhism's like your goal is enlightenment, remove everything else in the path. This is the way, directly straight down. But I think it's problematic for people, and I think that's why it's not only difficult, but the biggest issue people face is shadow work, right? Like shadow work when the traumas come up, and now they have to deal with the traumas, and so the mind isn't ready to sustain enlightenment because um you aren't in a state where you can be clear enough to um to stay there. Although Frank Yang did say, in his opinion, it's like clean up and then grow up or something like that. Like you want to awaken and then clean up
Wake
after,
up and then wake up and grow up, perhaps.
something like that. Yeah,
I've heard Joe say something to the effect of that.
yeah. I've heard him say
What does Frank Yang say about growing up and
Wake up, clean up, grow up.
wake
some
up,
shit like
clean
that.
up, grow
that.
up?
Yeah,
That's what
that's
Joe
it.
says.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah, because like you wake up by discovering your authentic nature, your true self,
Yeah.
and then you wake up to the fact that your true self is actually pretty fucked up. So it's like I should probably clean these
you
aspects
hear
of my character up.
yeah. I can.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to be like fake kind and fake loving. But like, who are you authentically? Maybe you're a fucking hateful bastard authentically. And then it's like, okay, you should that up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Be interesting.
Yeah, but I think they can go hand in hand. I don't
I
know if I
find
totally agree with that idea, but I I can't be conclusive yet. Like, yeah, but I have a feeling it doesn't matter if you do shadow work as you go, or his mentality is more like just get insight and then do it later. Like, I don't necessarily think that's the best path.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like it. The truth of it is probably like different for different folks.
Mm,
You know, like there's going to be different things that resonate for different people, for different personality types, for different sets of experiences, and finding like a one size fits all is generally quite challenging. And I think that's all the more reason why people creating content around this type of thing, this, let's say, the awakening movement, if you will, is really, really important, because the way that you say something might resonate with somebody who needs, let's say, that layman language so they can understand. Whereas, like, someone else might really resonate with all the really heady intellectual techno babble, if you will. And yeah, so basically, what I'm trying to say is what resonates for somebody will be different than what resonates
mm,
for somebody else. And so I think if we each can find what it seems to be true in our experience and do our best to share that with the world in a way that's harmonious and wholesome, I think good things will come from that.
definitely, definitely. Who do you resonate with?
Um, there's this guy on YouTube called Joe Nimchak. So,
No idea who he is.
shameless plug. No. He's um, in terms of spiritual teachers, I suppose, I do jump around a fair bit. There's there's on like often my YouTube is like my YouTube feed is just like all different sorts of people. So in some cases, I like people like Sadhguru who are out there teaching yoga and yoga
Yeah.
principles. But also sometimes he says shit and I'm just like, bro, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, my thoughts on
You know?
Sadhguru is he's gotten so bored that he just answers random questions. Like,
Yeah.
it's not his field, right? It's like an accountant talking about medical questions. Like
Yes.
there's like some relation, but not like a huge relation. And he's like, oh, I'll answer these silly questions with my thoughts and just laugh about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I've also watched a little bit of Sam Harris, for example. I
Yeah.
also, I quite like Jordan Peterson. And even though he's not like technically a spiritual teacher, a lot of what he has started talking about is really studying the Bible for its core messages. And
Mm,
then how does that relate into modern day life?
yeah.
And so I've found that really interesting as someone who really used to resist the Bible for like dogmatic teachings. Whereas because one of the things I don't like about it is that you're just supposed to figure out what the metaphors mean, but people take them as this literally happened. And so I think he does a good job of like breaking down like this is the core underlying theme that
Mm.
seems to exist in human life, and this is what we can learn from that. So I really like that. And then yeah, man, I'm just all over the place when it comes to spirituality. I think I also really like reading about consciousness and metaphysics and manifestation. That kind of stuff really resonates with me. And there's a good book I really like called Transurfing, which talks about reality creation.
I've heard of that one. A lot of YouTubers make videos
Yeah,
of friend surfing.
yeah. It's the guy's like super mysterious, like the author, which could add or detract from credibility depending how you look at it. But I've like really applied things that the book says, and every single time I apply it, I'm like, God damn, this stuff works.
Could you give an example?
Sure. One example was actually, I shit you not, meeting Joe. So I was in the Impact U community. There is a self-discovery course where we teach the daily alignment. And so that was something that I learned from a number of different coaching programs that I had. So that's just a little background context. I had been using my daily alignment, and I felt like I didn't have any of like the type of friends that I quite wanted. Like I wanted someone who was super open-minded and who was spiritual and who was entrepreneurial and I could talk to about all different topics like psychology, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, I don't know where the hell I'm gonna find that person. But I wrote them down. It's like, this is the type of person I want. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, like it wasn't very long, I get this message from this guy on Instagram, Joe, who just reached out literally out of the blue because he saw one of my videos. And it was the first time he had ever reached out to somebody online in that capacity, just on a whim, because he was like, fuck it, I just feel like doing it.
Yeah.
We immediately hit it off and then became friends, talked every single week, and now he's sitting on a couch.
Hell yeah. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah. Also, sorry,
I
go ahead.
agree, man. Like that thing's crazy. And that's why I don't really subscribe to this whole like linear reality model anymore, rational reality model, because I don't think it's so much like that. It's more like we're all interconnected, and every thought is magic, every feeling, intentions, magic rippling out in the universe, and it's something's happening, and we can't really tell what's happening, but then synchronicity happens. When we align more with the universal will, in a sense. And so for me now, like I just go through my life and I see lots of synchronicities, or I go somewhere and I meet something was meant to happen for some realization, which was meant to wake me up or meant to teach me something. And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yes. And so basically what transurfing teaches, and forgive me if you already know this, but he talks a lot about the mirror principle, that external reality is a reflection of your internal reality, but with a delay. And what often happens is people want something, but it's distorted in their mind through narratives that they tell about the truth about things or who they are, what they could have or not have, et cetera, et cetera. And then reality unfolds and gives some bastardized or distorted version of what they had in their mind. But because it's a delay, it feels like it's not, that you are not in control of it. But the moment you start actually paying attention and you hold a clear image in your mind, all of a sudden synchronicities start happening. Serendipity comes into your life and it's like, here, this is perfect thing that you were looking for. It's craziness.
Yeah, that is. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Have you ended up doing the course in making a daily alignment?
No, I haven't. Didn't even know it existed.
Okay. I would recommend doing it if something like that is interesting for you. I would say it's like
Yeah, it
one
is.
of the most excellent. It's something I've done with clients as well. When I first got it, I was like, at the beginning of every coaching contract I did with people, I was like, you are making a daily alignment. And I had people that after everything we did together, they were like, this tool of the daily alignment has changed my life so significantly. And because they allowed themselves to use it as a tool for manifesting. One of the challenges with manifesting is like we get distracted, we get sidetracked, we forget what it was that we were exactly imagining. And if you can create a document, just like it's not a very complex concept, like you just create a document about the thing that you really want to create, but you pour your intention into it and then you review it every day. and it helps guide. It's like a guided visualization that you wrote yourself effectively, and then all of a sudden, shit just starts happening. It's crazy.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's free. We made it free for everybody. So you go to the self-discovery course in the community, and you'll find a course that Shield made to help people write it.
Oh, okay. Is it the what's it called? Ignite? Sorry, it's the introduction, awakening your inner flame. The journey begins. Was that a different one?
Yes.
Self-discovery course.
No,
I've started that one.
that's the one.
That is the one.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. I'll definitely go through it all then. I've just been I haven't really been looking at most of the posts now because I just don't get around to it. I've just been so busy. But I want to get the mobile app for this website now because I found out there's a mobile app, which means I can actually look at it on the go, which would be way more productive than looking at Instagram. So that's going to change
Yeah.
how I'm interacting. So yeah, I think you'll see me posting a lot more, or at least liking a lot more.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be great. Joe and I actually were celebrating today that we came on because we've had a super busy couple of days. But we came on and like our homepage was just like filled with people posting shit. We were like, this is
No
amazing.
way.
Like this is what community is about, right? Like bringing people together who share certain interests, actually building relationships between the people in the community, and then just people just start having conversations about interesting things. Like we got a guy in here now who's like really into Kundalini. We've got another guy in here who is talking about psychedelic experiences. We've got a guy who came to our community event today who is an Anglican priest for like his whole career, but is like now doing psychotherapy. And it's just everyone is interested in like the esoteric topic of like what is the truth and how do we find enlightenment. And I don't know, that just jazzes me up.
I love that. That is great. I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying the community. Yeah, I'm really enjoying what you've created. Like, it's just such a great platform. I didn't even know this existed.
Excellent.
It's like a new social network, basically. Yeah, it's the next Facebook.
Sorry, man. We got to a little leg there, and I missed what you said. I heard I enjoy it, and then something, and then next space.
Oh, okay. I said it's the new social network. It's like the new Facebook. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And also, I don't know if Joe said this to you or not, so forgive me if this is redundant, but any ideas that you have, anything that you're like, hey, this would be really cool to do, or I like this, or I don't like this, or this is frustrating me, or like literally any feedback or ideas that you have that you think would make this better, please let us know. Because obviously like we do our best, but we're not oracles. We don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so any and all feedback is really welcome.
Yeah, definitely. No, I like what you've done so far. I don't have any like specific feedback, but I think the engagement you've done to communicate with people and get them on calls and you and your co-founders is really good because I think the in-person conversations or the verbal conversations really create the dynamic. So now that I've talked to you, it's going to be different when we actually talk on chat compared to if we hadn't talked before. You're just a guy online, right?
Totally. Absolutely, man.
I
And
think voice messages and video could be helpful too. Just an idea. I don't know if you can post it on the posts on the different channels, but you could like just make a little. You can start making videos. Could be something you could try.
Mhm.
Sorry, what were you
That
going to say
is
before?
interesting. Yeah. I can send voice messages. I should send more voice messages.